let's go ahead and take the time and give it our little review. So the last case of John Morley, an indie title that was not boasting a very long runtime. It was saying right off the bat that it was going to be roughly a 3-hour experience, which is pretty much what I clocked in at. A narrative game that combines some investigation, detection work, introducing this British-based detective, and he's got to solve a cold case that is 20 years old. And I thought, you know what, that'd be a great little way to, it's a good length of a game. It's not too overly complicated, based on how the other game didn't work out. So I went ahead and gave it a go. So let's get into the discussion. Let's talk about it. I'm going to start off with what I did enjoy about the game. So the first thing I want to say, what I liked about the game. I will say just a couple things have changed. I will say over the time of it. The mood is there, the atmosphere is there. I think I'm gonna turn this down a little bit more, sorry. The atmosphere is really good. I feel like it really takes you into the, to England in the right era. Mid-40s detection. There's not a whole lot there. You know what I mean? Like you have limited stuff, and you have to really do old school nitty-gritty cases, and or case solving. You don't have all this technology to help you. So I definitely like that. And I like the idea behind it. I like the setting. I think it really brought in the story. I'd say, not up until obviously without spoiling anything, the story was quite of a shock. I feel like there were some twists and turns along the way, and we were trying to fill in the blanks. And even though at the start I thought it felt like, a kind of a AI scripted thing, it ended up turning out to be not what I expected, which is good in a good way. So I think based on what they implanted, I'd say they did a pretty good job at that, as long as they didn't use an AI scriptwriter, of course. But regardless, I think the story was pretty solid, especially as we got going. Started out a bit slow, it seemed kind of odd, but then it got better as we went through it. So I think the story was pretty good. Also, I do want to mention the game is relatively inexpensive. Again, this was only like a $15 game Canadian, so I think it's like 12-ish dollars US. So it's not going to break your bank, and you're going to get 3 hours for $12. And to be honest, I've paid more for shorter games. I paid more for DLC. So for a price point, you really can't go wrong with it in terms of that. So now that I've covered what I enjoyed, I'm going to go into what I didn't like about the game. So unfortunately, there's not much I can really say other than the fact that the game does have a lot of genericism in it. We were kind of teasing the game throughout, but I will say that the game is just filled with Unreal assets. This thing is just, they went to the Unreal Assets store and just started adding things to their cart, grabbing things left and right off the shelves. Almost every item in this game, from the character designs to the set designs, to the objects in the game, it was all from the Unreal Assets store. There was not, I played a few games that were made by indie devs in the, using the Unreal 5, and there's just so much that they've taken from that. Obviously, being in an indie game, I can understand you got to use the tools at your disposal. You're a smaller team, you don't have as much money, you don't have as, you can't resource that kind of stuff. So that's why the asset store exists. But when you see it over and over and over again, and it's the same assets across all these games, they tend to get a whiff of cheapness to it. It almost feels like a whiff of laziness. Like people aren't drawing their own stuff anymore. They're not designing their own, own assets at all. It's all just taken from the store quickly. It's you just buy it, you buy it cheap, or is it even free? I don't even know. It might even be free, but you just get it and you put it into your game and you see it a bunch of times. So the Unreal assets were all over the place, and again, I took away from it quite a bit in my opinion. One other thing I have to say is performance-wise, this game was performed quite poorly given the sheer size of it. It's not like it's a very physically demanding game, but being on Unreal 5, all of it was not it was not even remotely optimized for any machine. If this was done by any other team, or not any other team, but a team that actually, it was actually tested and worked through, it would not run this poorly. There's not enough stuff in this game to really make that much bloat. Again, that's an Unreal problem, but again, there's a lot of times where you got to use the right version of Unreal 5 and you won't get this sort of thing. But I think one of the most polarizing things, one of the most shocking things was the game auto-detected and set my settings to ultra. So based on my machine, it set everything to ultra, which was maxed out, and I'm like, okay, I'll leave it. Go into game and it's choppy as a motherfucker. Like, it's crazy choppy. So I basically had to drop it down to high, and I figured high was still a little bit off, you know, so it wasn't perfectly 60. So I dropped it down to medium, and that difference from high settings to medium settings was so insanely jarring. Like, if you actually go in and look at it, if you set to medium settings and high, it's like you're playing in a different era. You're playing in a different decade of gaming. Like, this is supposed to be a 2025 game. And if you switch it to medium settings, which is a pretty average, you know, setting, like a lot of people play on medium settings all the time and the game will still look quite good. It looked like you were playing a game from like 2003 or something. It was absolutely crazy. It went from like the 2020s to like even the 2020s, it was like kind of meh, because the Unreal Asset graphics are kind of at best. It just went back 20 years either way. And I was like, how does medium settings and high settings differ so dramatically? So because it looks so poor on medium settings, I played on high, and it was mostly good in terms of, you know, frame rate. Although in certain areas with a heavy load, like, you know, precipitation or a lot of like different models and things like that, that's when it started to slow down. It was tolerable at best, so it wasn't the end of the world, but it did take away from the game as well. Unfortunately, there was also a lot of inconsistencies with the audio. The audio had like, it was really quiet for voice speakers, but then you had sound effects that were insanely loud, so there was not really any balancing in the audio whatsoever. So a lot of times I got like, I'm like, this is so quiet, I have to crank it, and then all of a sudden you'll jump out of your skin, and you'll basically be falling out the chair, just not even necessarily because it got you scared, but it's so loud it just shocked the hell out of you. So the audio balancing wasn't done very well, and yeah, so it made for kind of a jank experience there. Also, there was a lot of inconsistencies with the script. I feel like the script was indeed written or created by ChatGPT, because there was like I said, tons of inconsistencies with the names of characters, names of places, the pronunciation of the characters and places. One minute it would be this character, and the next minute he'd have a completely different name. Like, for example, Muller and Mulder. They were the same doctor, but his office said Muller, and then he was known as Mulder the whole time. And then like Bloom, like, you know, the Bloom Manor or whatever, like was Blom or Blom. It went from Bloom to Blom, and sometimes they pronounce it Blom, sometimes they pronounce it Bloom. So it's like, which is it? So it's like the inconsistencies with it. The script was not fine-tuned. It's almost like they didn't read any of their script, and they just handed the script to the voice actors, because they claimed they had voice actors doing the script, and they were actually reading it and actually delivering lines. It felt like the delivery was kind of AI-like, because they've used AI in like so many different areas of this game. They said they've used AI in just like a couple things like art, some like random art, and then they modified it. But then they've also gone on like saying that they've admitted being heavily influenced by AI use, and that was very evident. So it just felt like this team tried to take the quickest and easiest route to getting a game out. Now, while the game wasn't that expensive, it did feel like they didn't really do the work to get it going. I'm not saying they did nothing, but it just seemed like, you've used most of the assets from, like a common marketplace for development. And then you also used ChatGPT to create things for you. It just seemed like, even if you say you didn't, either you're that like unobservant and not detail oriented and you didn't read your script, or you just literally went, here, write this, copy, paste, copy, send, you know what I mean? And you didn't like proofread anything. Like I said, there wasn't tons of typos, but it switched between them. And I'm just like, I don't really know how that's possible. I don't really know how, like, usually if you get an idea for a name, you get behind a character and you like create that character's essence. You don't give them two different names. It just goes to show you don't really care about the character. It's like, this is just a game to try and appease the enthusiasts of like a noir style detective game, because that's what got me. Like, it just seemed like, oh, I like this, could be an interesting character, but they ended up being really, really generic in a lot of ways. So yeah, this game unfortunately does not really live up to much. It doesn't really have the greatest, there's no replay value whatsoever. It took me 3 hours and I got all the achievements, and I can't help but compare it to the game I played yesterday, which also released on the exact same day. Hail to the Rainbow, same price. Hail to the Rainbow is exactly the same price, and that game it took me over 10 hours to do, and it was very rich, and it had like, you know, it was created by one person, no AI, and it's just crazy the difference. It's like, I mean, I don't really, I think it's kind of inexcusable because there's so many games that kind of riddle the market on Steam, and there's just unfortunately so many of them that kind of use smoke and mirrors to distract you from what they're actually giving you, and this was one of those games. Now, while I don't want to say it was the worst game in the world by any means, it had its entertainment. Like I said, the story had its moments, and you know, it was interesting enough, and the vibe of the game was enough to keep me going. But unfortunately, with all the problems that it did have, you know, like I'm summarizing this game right now. Actually, let's just restart to summarize the game. Let's go into the summary. So the game, like I said, despite it having an interesting kind of plot, and it got, you know, once it got going, it started off kind of slow, but it got going, it was starting to get interesting, and obviously there's some twists and turns along the way, and it make you rethink your whole thought process, and because you're trying to fill in the blanks. So they do capture that element of the, you know, wanting questions answered, which makes you want to continue the game, and having that vibe and doing that quite well. But on the other end of it, the game is just so damn AI ridden, and just, you know, unreal assets, and just not a lot of like uniqueness to it. A lot of mistakes with the script, poor optimization. Obviously you can tell this game was not meant to be played out of 1080p. I feel like that would have been a big difference if I switched to just 1080p. I feel like the performance would be a lot better, and I probably wouldn't stutter as much, but it shouldn't matter. On modern machines, most people are 1440, and you know what I mean? I feel like if you're like, there's not as many people doing 4K, but there's a lot of people with 1440p monitors. That's pretty standard. That's kind of like the sweet spot for monitors. So I feel like it's odd not to put it in that kind of or not optimize it for that resolution. But like I said, there was a lot of things that just kind of took away from it, and by the end of it, the negatives do outweigh the positives, and they just make this game completely forgetful, and there's literally zero reason for me to replay this game ever again. There's no replay value whatsoever. Like, the story doesn't change, and like I said, I understand it's really inexpensive, but like I said, at the same time, there's so many things that are taken from other stores. I'm going to run into the exact assets that were used, and like I said, AI, it's just like, that's cheating, man. That is cheating in my opinion. So unfortunately, this game doesn't really meet the mark like I thought it would. There were reviews giving it nothing but positivity. It said there wasn't a ton of reviews, but there was enough reviews to give it an average, and people were giving it really good ratings, like 4 to 5 stars, and saying it was good. But if you read some of those reviews on Steam, it does seem a little bit fake, because people just don't talk that way. Do you know what I mean? If you actually look at some of these reviews, people just don't talk that way, and the reasons for giving it a good score don't really make sense. So it does seem like reviews were bought, and they are like bot reviews, or, you know, they might be real people ones, or they, you know, they have these companies that go in and review your game or review a film or whatever the case would be. It does feel like that. So I feel like this game uses a lot of smoke and mirrors to trick you into buying it. And unfortunately, by the time you finish it, you're over the 2-hour mark. You can't get a refund, or, you know, it's just, you get kind of duped, and I don't like being duped. I really don't like being duped in this market, because in this kind of a world, you gotta, in this kind of like this industry, the gaming industry, you gotta do something to stand out. You can't ride that wave of mediocrity. I don't let Ubisoft get away with it, and I don't think indie devs should get away with it either, especially if you're using greasy business practices to try and get people to buy your game, and then claiming that you're not doing the things that you're actually clearly doing. So unfortunately, it gets I want to say, like, negative points for that. Again, I don't think it's the worst game in the world, but when you really stack it up, I've given better games worse scores. So, like, even though it was a decent game at times, and the journey was pretty, you know, was interesting, and it was enough to keep me going, there's just too many things that ruin it for me. There's too many things that, like, are kind of like I'm just making this game to try and make a quick buck. That's what I get from this game. It's like, it's super generic as a whole, even though having some, you know, nice things in there. And like I said, I don't like being duped, and I don't like people trying to pull the wool over the gamer's eyes. And then by the time you buy it and you play through the game, you're like, well, damn, now what? You know what I mean? I don't like that. So based on that, I'm going to give this game a pretty low score. I was hoping it'd be at least around the average, like around 5 or so. But I just couldn't really get there. So being super generic, but also it's not that expensive either. So I'm comparing all these things, throwing them all in. I'm still going to give the game a 3.5, a pretty low score. Like I said, the things it does right and the things it does wrong are pretty polarizing, and it's pretty obvious to see what this game is done. So if I were you guys, I would skip this one, because quite frankly, if you've watched my Let's Play on it, you watched my series, you watched it, you know, you don't need to do anything else. You've experienced everything. There's not enough content in this game to warrant any more than one play, and there's no need to even play it yourself. Like, unless you're an achievement hunter, then that may be a reason to do it, but I don't know, man. Save the 15 bucks and do something else. That's my opinion, but either way, that's going to be it for me. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Regardless, if you did, be sure to leave a like. Comment your thoughts below, of course, and don't forget to subscribe if you are new. Turn on those post notifications with the bell icon so you don't miss anything I put out here on the channel. Be sure to like, follow my socials, Facebook, X, Instagram, Snapchat, and Discord. Those are linked in the description. If you want to get yourself a shirt or hoodie of mine, there's a link in the description. Also, an embedded feature right below the stream that shows a preview of some items you can get, but ultimately just go to the website for the full range of products and customization options. Big shout out to all the sponsors, of course, DX Racer, Bones Coffee, The Ridge Wallet, Mad Rabbit Tattoo. I use their products daily. Check them out for yourselves with the links in the description. Be sure to use my promo code DANQ8000 to save at checkout with those guys. If you want to send something to my PO box, I do have an address listed in the description. Anything that gets sent to that PO box will be open in a social post or a live stream, whatever makes more sense for whatever is sent my way. So check that out if you're interested. Finally, be sure to check out and sign up for the Team 8000 membership program if you haven't done so yet. It does support the page immensely. There is 4 tiers, 4 price points. The entry level is 99 cents, so it's cheap and easy to get in the program that way. However, across various tiers, you will get things like custom badges by your name, custom emojis used in chat, exclusive video and stream access, priority in open lobbies, giveaways, discounts, and plenty more. Working our way through the 1600s, which is awesome. Cracked 1600 members recently. Next major milestone is going to be 1700. So if you guys want to help us reach that goal, you know, get some cool perks while you're supporting the channel, you can join that with the link in the description. There is a join button below the stream. Also a section on my main channel page as well. If you want to gift members or send super chats or super thanks, you can do both of those with the $ icon next to chat. Give it a click. You'll get a drop down menu pop. If you are gifting members, just remember you can do 1 to 50 in a single transaction, but you can gift as many as you want through multiple transactions. Okay, thank you guys again. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we catch you in the next stream very soon. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you then. Take care. Peace.
Who's the man with the plan? If you feel trouble wildin' wild on these violent and hit you 8,000. Wait a minute, hold that style is dialed in. Goddamn Billy Jack, we still riding tires flat. I hear them sirens, see shots flying, so we driving fire back. If they ain't vibing, lie with that. Got me dressed up in all black. What up? Hood up, and I see them haters try to run with us. They gon' need inhalers. Gotta breathe them hard just like Darth Vader. Players, grab your respirators. Night invaders get lightsabered. Mask on for the shooters, move like trash to bed intruder. Got that Glock and got them woofers. Just press play, I'll keep it moving. Who is not still, you damn fools? Keep it fresh like canned food. There ain't nothing we can't do, so tune into that damn Q. Yeah. It was never, ever a game.